Yo, what's up, homies? Welcome to the Nobody Podcast. It's me again, John Kellogg, hanging out here in sunny Southern California. Oh man, I've been having a good time. I've been doing some DIY stuff around my house, just like repainting, minor electrical stuff, changing outlets, that kind of, minimal stuff. Um, and it's been good, man. I like doing that. It makes it feel good. But you know what? I'll tell you right now, dude. I know I fucked something up because I put this goddamn that putty, that what is it, spackle on the stuff that it's all jacked up on your walls. You got to hide it, right? It's like your cover up, cosmetic surgery for the wall. Man, that it's been 2 goddamn weeks and that stuff is still a little soft. So I'm thinking, man, I fucked it up. I remember my dad saying something about you have to mix it together. Like when you buy it, you got to mix it and turn. I really didn't do that. So I'm thinking that might be the deal. So today is the day, or sometime soon, for me to go up there, man, and maybe just to admit my mistakes and say I fucked it up. But we'll see, man. So I've just been doing some painting and stuff. So it's been going good. I've been having a good time. You know what? I don't mean this in a bad way, but I sure as shit prefer this to dating because at least when you go spend the money at Home Depot, and then you put in the time, you put in the work, like you get a nice return. Like you can see that it is a vast, significantly improved place, when you do that. So I like that because that's like basically 100% guarantee, right? If you take the initiative and you do the work and you put in the time and you put in the money, right? Whatever you're working on is going to be significantly improved. Now, it's not a knock, right? Because I'm not a fucking finished product myself as a man, but I sure as shit prefer that for dating because you put in the time, you put in the money, right? You do what you need to do, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have significant improvement, like in the woman or in your experience or dating in general, right? And I think that's the thing is like, I look at it, and as I get, older, I get a little smarter, more efficient with my money, and I get know what I'm doing, a little more so know what I'm doing now. Um, I have a different view, man. I look at dating as like investing. Like I look at it this way: would I rather, right, go out to some chick at some decent place, right? And nowadays they've been jacking up prices and using inflation as the excuse. It is a problem. I'm not going to say it's not, but to the extent that it is, no, that's just an opportunity to jack up the price of things. So I look at this and go, all right, if you get a cheap date night out, cheap, we're talking 75 to $100, right? Right now, Palantir, right, which is like the AI 1%, you know, it's like that. If you think of like the fucking 1% power people in the country, in my opinion, Palantir, that's their like pet project. That's their baby. It's some learning AI thing, military type AI thing, right? So right now, I think Palantir is under 12. Let me check. Let me check. Just under 12, 11.96. So anyway, right? Would I rather go out, right, and spend all that, right? Spend money, but to say between 75 and 100, right? Or would I rather go buy, let's say, between 5 and 10 shares of Palantir? Because there's probably a good chance that a company run by the one percenters is going to do well. In fact, that's the sole reason why I invest in them because they are the people in charge. That is the power brokerage right there. So, look, I'm not saying I'm for or against it. I'm just saying that when it comes to the money, I know who's going to win. The rich people are in charge. That's their pet project right there. So to me, it's a no brainer. So what would I rather do that? Right? You look at my house, right? Same thing. The time investment there is there's a for sure, right? If you put in and you do it correctly and you do it as best as you can, because you control all the factors there, right? If I do as best as I can, my house looks significantly better. That's not necessarily true with the women you date. Not necessarily true that I take her out, put in the time, put in the money, the effort, that she's going to look and be significantly better. There's a hopefully that's the case, and there probably is a fair chance of it. But the reality is that it's not a certainty like your home, right? And it's not necessarily a certainty like the stock market. especially if you use the proper metrics to evaluate things. Which comes to that's what it comes down to in everything in life is how good are you at evaluating reality? Everyone, we have our opinions and our biases, but in the great words of Mark Twain, or at least I've heard it's attributed to him, he didn't say it, but my favorite saying is, it ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for certain that just ain't so. And so we all have our biases, and if we stick with those biases and beliefs, they're just as likely to lead you astray, or more likely to lead you astray than they are to the just what's really happening in reality. So that's what I've been doing. I've been a boring old 41-year-old man, just fixing up my house, hanging out, going out occasionally, but for the most part, just sort of investing in myself. Man, I've gotten much better at playing the guitar. I shouldn't say much better. You know when you don't play for a long time and then you jump in again, and there's that period of struggle where you have to kind of shake the rust off. And then I got into that period just recently where I was like, "Oh, I'm getting like back to where I was. Like I'm almost getting to that level." And then you start playing some of the stuff you used to play, and then you're like, "Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I'm not there." Like even things like for me, Freebird, not Freebird, Simple Man by Leonard Skinner. That song is not really difficult, right? The chord progression is very simple. It's the same pick pattern through the whole song, right? And that's true for even for the strumming, the rhythmic guitar part. It's right. So I was doing that, and I was having the hardest time just getting that down. And to me, that was like almost second nature years ago. So it was is this humbling thing that I got through that stage. I'm at that point where I realized like, oh yeah, this is a lot harder than I thought. I forgot it took all that time and work to sort of do it, and I just have to go through it. Versus that, the previous stage, which was, oh yeah, man, I'm gonna get this. I'll be back at this in a few months, man. I'll be right back to where I was when I spent way more time and effort into it. So it's the reality of even if no matter what you used to be, you still have to put in the time and work. And the time and work that I have now versus what I used to when I was in college is totally different. I don't nearly have the time, nor do I have the energy and the interest that I did back then. So it's interesting, but it's the same thing. It doesn't matter. You got to just grind it out, put in the work to get the results. So I was thinking earlier that I was thinking about like the blockchain technology. I'm not talking crypto, just the technology behind it that supports it, the blockchain. Blockchain simply just is a verified, sort of an uncorruptible ledger. Uncorruptible in the sense of that there are thousands of people, if not more than that, tens of thousands, who are verifying this ledger, and there are many, many multiple copies of a ledger. So if you do falsify one, it can easily be checked against the many copies. So I'm wondering why can't we put voting into the blockchain technology, right? Or adapt our government to that. You can still motivate, and a big part of the blockchain, right? People are going to say is the proof of work. You can still motivate proof of work. You can still hand out money. You can still hand out tax credits. You can still, you can still provide a monetary motive in a capitalist society, and that will easily find motivation for the proof of work to verify the voting ledger. What I'm talking about is essentially we would each, with our social security number, you would have some sort of drive where you could, plug it into a computer, log into a site, and you go and we vote on things. Um, and by voting on things, I mean you would vote directly. This would remove the need for representatives and senators. We would need some sort of body or committee to sort of step in who has to sort of um, oversee creating, like, you're going to have to create some sort of voting district so that way everything's even and equal. And ideally you don't want these districts to be redrawn or to be able to be redrawn. You'd want some kind of technology that says, the person is residing in this area and has been, and so this is where they're voting. We need to rebalance, the numbers so that it's fair and equal. That way, every district has the same number of people. And then the result, per district, instead of having a representative or a senator voting or casting that result as a vote in your stead, it would just go that in Congressional District 1, the result of the bill on appropriations for defense spending, the result was no, they don't want to issue $850 billion for defense. Congressional District 2 votes yes. Congressional District 500 votes whatever. Right? And we can parse these out as large or as small. It could be as few as 1,000 people. It could be as many as 1,000,000 people in a district. Whatever they want to do. The point is by doing so and removing representatives, you cut out the middleman. You cut out corruption. There's no more lobbying immediately. You have no more of these congressmen outperforming Wall Street. No more of that where these guys went from not doing great to suddenly being, multiple times up on the people at Wall Street who do this for a living. Again, we can base appropriations on this type of thing where we can say, do we want to spend the 800 billion on education, or do we want to spend it on defense? Do we want to spend it on infrastructure, or do we want to spend it on water reclamation? Right? You can, limit these things to, let's say, 50,000 words or 5,000 words or X number of pages, to where that way you have more pieces of legislation based on a single issue versus what we have now, which is these enormous pieces of legislation which can never be read or will not be read until years later, with all these writers and attachments that have nothing to do with the bill and the intent behind it. So and this way, as long as you do same thing, and the blockchain is essentially the ledger that keeps the voting on it to say this is the true and real result. This takes away all these side doors to the political parties have, or back doors through these companies that they have contracts with and through the government to monitor the voting that they have now in the ballot counting. This is, this could be done. You essentially would remove all of what we call congressional, not all, but most of congressional corruption almost immediately. And with this too, with this type of like digital voting, the beautiful thing is you could institute some type of recall system nationally. Now, I know people who don't live in California might think this is ridiculous because then if people get mad or get upset with something, they can just recall it. I want to point out California is an entirely Democratic state. To say that the Republicans have a presence here is overstating a presence. They're like a faint light in the distance, let's call it, instead of presence. They're barely recognizable here. So, and even the Republicans here, compared to Republicans, they're pretty fucking moderate. They're pretty liberal. So, what I'm saying here is that this is a democratic state, and it's entirely blue. There's no way around it. So, the recall system. So California has such a leverage in being democratic that it can, if a policy is not, let's say, liberal, it could easily enforce that policy just congressionally because they have such a supermajority. They can just easily overcome any veto or anything. The recall system is a nice way to let the people themselves decide rather than the legislatures in their place. The nice thing about a recall system is you could do it digitally. If you're voting digitally, you could do it almost entirely free because you're not like the only people spending money are the people campaigning, right? And so you would think that they would be spending that money back into the system, right? Our economy through media, entertainment, whatever. So, but as far as costing the government, it would be very minimal just to put out the digital recall vote. Do we want to recall so and so and so? Do you want to recall the people on the committee who draw the congressional lines because it looks like they got caught doing some fuckery which is what we do now. So see, now fuckery is the standard. But then you could just go in there and start immediately picking off the bad players who are on these committees, who are sort of giving the people in the blockchain voting the information. So I think it's a great way to institute power back to the people and to give us the control and to give us say over our future and our country and the direction. I personally do believe in like a total, and not a total, but I do believe in a free market system. To be clear, what we have is not a free market system. You have the Fed buying up assets on private companies that they prefer. This is not a free market. The rich people are subsidized by everyone's money. They keep printing more and more and more and driving up inflation so that they can support the wealthy class. This is hardly a free market economy. I am for a free market economy. I am totally in the Swiss school of economics. Put money in the people's hands and they are going to make the best choices that as it applies to them. No matter if you give people, let's say, even free money like what they did during the pandemic, right? I'm totally not against that. No matter what happens, I understand that people don't like the fact that people just got money for no reason. It does drive up inflation. It doesn't help because this is a spending economy. We don't have any exports. So that's why it drives up inflation because in order to keep this whole Ponzi scheme rolling, we got to spend, 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 and print, 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 print. Money, 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 baby. So all this to say, blockchain voting, I think that's the way out. And that's exactly why America will never let it happen. And that's exactly why the government, I shouldn't say America, why the government will never let it happen and those in power. They will never allow blockchain voting. They will never go to an altcoin. They will never go to an altcoin because it is an uncorruptible ledger with thousands of copies. They do not want you to know what they're spending their money on. They don't want you to know how these black op groups and all these private defense contractors and mercenary type companies, how and where they get their money. They have no interest in telling you or showing us the real ledger. If you looked at how they appropriate money, they just take money right off the balance sheet right away after they spend it, not after they pay it back. They know the money has to get paid back, but it goes right off the liability sheet. Now, if any company ran its books the way America ran its books, every single one of them would be in jail for the rest of their lives. It's it's crazy the way that they do accounting at the government. Absolutely insane. Totally, totally against and opposite of what we as the people individually have to do, and to some extent our companies. Like, you think companies get away with highway robbery on this tax and this appropriations and the way they do their accounting? You should go check out the way government does it. Local, state, and federal. Those guys, that's the real fucking magicians right there. So, you know, the so it would be nice to see, America go to an altcoin, to go to basically to utilize the blockchain. Because I think it's a great way to have some sense of accountability. And right now, it seems like the best way to keep everything in check, especially the people who are most likely to abuse their power, is by using money and by using accountability. Rather than have the eye of the state turned on us, we should have the eye of the state trained on everybody. That way, and by that I mean, I don't mean spying. By that I mean that having these verified ledgers that have that are very, very incredibly, almost impossibly difficult to corrupt is the way to go. That way we can make decisions for ourselves based on what we want and giving us the power of choice. But the government doesn't want us that. They are our owners, and it is in their best interest to prevent us to have the power of choice. So I right, I just hope one day things change, but unfortunately, we have this beautiful technology that can restore accountability and transparency in the face of this incredible security state. And my hope is that one day we realize this, and as the people, the beautiful thing about about this technology is that it's decentralized. So we can just sort of start moving it in that account or in that direction. Um, Eventually it's going to need to be legitimized on the government's end. Someone within the government is going to need to, make it legal or adopt it. But if we, the people, sort of get in on this, and I don't want to say demand it, but really get behind this, it'll be in their political interest to institute this into the government. So I can only hope that one day in the next, maybe hopefully 10 years, that we sort of uncover the true potential for this wonderful blockchain technology. As far as altcoin, totally get the why you'd want to have a decentralized monetary coin. Totally get it. But just like everything else in the world in existence, there is also some cons to it. There's some downside. The downside being is you're not going to have any legal recourse if some fuckery happens. Granted, it's almost impossible that any fuckery happens, but if any fuckery happens, you're not going to have you don't have a court system for Bitcoin. There's no Bitcoin court. Right? There is an American court that if anything fucks around with your treasury note, that there is legal recourse you have. Same thing with China. Now, the laws in China may say that, hey, if you're a foreigner, we can fuck you at any time. But at least that's what the law says. And before you buy that Chinese treasury note, that there is the possibility of fuckery, just like there is with America. But at least you have a means to try to get some sort of compensation. And it's not in the government's best interest to fuck over its customers and then try to fuck it over in compensation wise. Because if you do that for one customer, the other customers are going to know. So you may deter, let's say, 50 other customers from buying those treasury bonds. So the government doesn't usually fuck around in that way. Without any sort of legal accountability with some altcoin, there's more likely to them to fuck around because they can. So I had this crazy idea the other day. I shouldn't say crazy, but I was hanging out and I saw something like as I was flipping through like YouTube looking for something to listen to while I was washing dishes. Um, I saw this crazy headline and I kind of had this crazy thought, or not a headline, but like the video title. And I had this kind of wild thought about it. Anyway, I was chilling out thinking, right? I was just kind of, it blows my mind like how the value of pussy has just plummeted especially since Tinder. And I'll say this again every time. I appreciate that app. It has done a great job at training women to prioritize their sexuality in the same way that we do. That is totally to our benefit for you and I to agree as men and women what we prefer, what our sort of sexual inclination is, right? It certainly helps us as far as not having to sort of buy the cow. That it has been very very helpful. I don't want to be a dick about it, but the truth is that it's done a great job of retraining the female priorities. And so I was looking around. There's not any study on this. The issue of like so you have this where the value of like women have just sort of degraded themselves to the level of um I shouldn't say they degrade. You've helped us, or you've greatly um contributed to the degradation of women, in my opinion, which has made which is why there aren't many men kind of getting into marriage, and the good successful ones certainly aren't settling down, or they're not changing their behavior, and they have many many options because that's just the way it's always been. It's just now with social media, it's so easy to see. But long story short, the value has plummeted. And so I started thinking like, what like do the children of single fathers fare better than the children of single mothers? And because we know that women, single mothers or single parents, which is almost entirely single mothers, it's something like 80 something percent, 86%. Right. So almost entirely on that one side. So it's very, very one sided. There are way more single mothers than fathers. But the children of single fathers seem to fare better than the children of single mothers. And I was noticing this. I was like, check this out. It blows my mind. I was thinking about we talk about, and here's before I go into the other stuff, there is no scientific study on this. So, and the studies that do exist are very problematic because they are prone to bias. So you can't use those. And whatever statistics do exist, right? They do suggest that fathers raise kids who do better productivity wise and happy wise, and they commit less crimes, and right, sort of just in general, they do better than mothers, right? But of course, kids with both parents seem to fare better. But because there is such a one sided thing on this, where there are way more mothers do not tend to abandon their children. Fathers do at a much higher rate than mothers. It's not even close. But what it's sort of the two parents thing implies is that kids are better off with dads, just sort of uniformly. Um, but I have to, so in the issue, I have to admit, because moms are way more likely to stick around, what we're comparing here, we're comparing the one in a million to the usual. The usual circumstance is that these single parents or mothers who are raising their kids alone, for whatever reason the father is not involved. Versus the minority of cases which are single fathers, for whatever reason the mother is not involved or primarily not involved. So it's essentially, it violates my first rule of you never compare the usual case to the one in the million case. And so to me it still seems unfair to compare that, right? But the reality, that's all we have to use. So it's there's a balance here. Well, this is the way it is. This is the reality of the statistics, you know, and the fact is that it is in there's the two sides of the coin, right? Men are primarily the ones not around. We primarily abandon the children. That's not a good thing at all. And on the same edge of that coin, on that same side, is that kids without fathers do worse. And then on the flip side of it, you have the other side of it, which is um, we're comparing the one in a million to the usual case, but that's essentially the reality. And so, in that one in a million versus the usual case, it seems to suggest that the one in a million cases perform better than the typical cases. And so, anyway, the fact. So, what I don't like about this is the people who are talking about this. Like, I did find discussions on YouTube, but it's all these guys with baggage that I don't like. I can't remember the guy's name. It's like Romo Tomanelli, or I just call him Roma Tamale. His name's not. These people aren't insights. They don't have great insight. I don't. Um, their baggage. They like to, they talk about women and wearing having baggage, but then these dudes, you can tell in the way they talk about women and dating that these guys. They just need a hug, man. They need to, heal themselves, and you don't do it by, just sort of trying to tell us what's wrong with the other side. Take some mushrooms, look within, my man. That's all I'm saying. Um, But the truth is, the fact that women are not talking about this, and if you do bring it up, they get mad as fuck. And then when it's even mentioned, you even bring up that men are better at raising better adjusted children than women do, and women get mad. It's an emotional, upsetting thing, and which also leads me to believe that there's definitely something to it. Then usually when you say something, this is me being a fucking chauvinist here, but usually if you say something to a woman that is the true spot on and it's something that they do not like and do not want to hear, and it hits with something to the core of their womanhood, they get fucking mad. It's not about rational, it's not about right, it's entirely emotional. So when something's entirely emotional like this, it leads me to think that I'm in the direction of the truth. In the words of the great Bob Marley, the truth is an offense, but not a sin. So if I offend you with the truth, or if you are offended by something, it seems to suggest to me that there's likely some truth or a lot of truth, that those two are very correlated. So it's kind of like Russiagate. Back in 2017, when it was Russia, 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 I was like, why are we fucking with this small B-rated economy? Nothing against the Russian economy. They're great. It's a commodities-based economy. They got natural resources and not much else. So it's a highly predictable PE to PE ratio economy, and it's not that big. They're definitely susceptible to the fluctuations, natural fluctuations of all economic cycles. So when the commodity cycle's down, Russia is not doing well, right? When commodities are up and things are not going so great with tech and all the other equities, Russia's doing better. They're not they're not huge, they're not big. So what I found out was that Russian oil had been doing better than American oil, and the output, their capabilities, because of their working with China and being in Africa, and they have a lot of resources themselves, oil wise, they got a ton, that they were doing well. And so it led me to I started looking at the Russian oil sector, and lo and behold, I did well. The whole crash thing came, got out, oil bottomed out. I bought in again in 2020 and rode it up until recently. So right when all this OPEC crap started with Biden. And I'll tell you, Russian oil has been nothing but good to me. It's a good move, but I found it because people get really emotional without any rationality, and it leads me to think that there's something behind that. So I look in down those dark, cold, angry hallways called reason and potential truth, and I found exactly what's behind it. You want to follow the truth? That's where you find the money. That's where I found the money. Russian oil, got no problem with it. I'm starting to think here that this is true, that maybe there's something to us men being much better for children, maybe even more so than women. So, death to the matriarchy. And you think about it, it might be true, right? Now, I'm not talking about death to the matriarchy. That is what we need to do. So, pitchforks and torches, baby. Let's go. Women do have more power than ever, and things do seem to be shittier than ever. I mean, feelings are now equal to facts. People can determine whatever their gender is they want to be. They can be elfish or they can be foxy-ish or whatever the fuck it is they want to be. And it's kind of, to me, it's like women kind of have these movies in their head in which they star them, right? There are, you know, guys either want to fuck them or don't want to fuck them, or everything is based on if I'm a victim or not, generally with some of these types. So the feminizing of America, it seems to be like this whole star of the movie in your own head, and then you get upset at people when they don't play along with you. And it's those upset people that and the people like me who aren't upset, we're not involved in this because we're not emotionally involved and we're rational. We piss off these people because we refuse to use these ridiculous pronouns, and we refuse to support ideologies that don't have any facts, entirely based on how people feel about things. So I think the best thing to say is they talk about how bad the patriarchy is. How about death to the matriarchy? For our kids' sake, for the sake of your children, you need to let men and fathers raise these kids so they don't grow up to be the same fuckheads that we have, are like the millennials in that generation. Right? We need men to lead our children into the future. Go men. Patriarchy rules. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for listening to the crazy ramblings again this time. Hope you guys have fun. Leave your comments. All those poisonous, anti-feminine comments, please leave those in the thing below. Look, it's just jokes, guys. We're just having fun here. And so I know I sound serious and I'm kind of being, but the truth is I'm still shitty at this and I don't know how to pull off an obvious sarcastic joke yet. But hey, I'm fucking trying. So leave your comments, criticisms, and everything in the comment. I appreciate you guys. Take care, all you fucking nobodies. Enjoy yourselves. Have a drink of coffee. Go smoke a bowl outside or smoke a cigar. Be a man this weekend. And ladies, I want you to think about this. Just think about this week. Just think about it. Don't do anything. But what if you were more like a man and you kind of beat your kid a little bit? Don't you think things might be a little better? Pro spanking. Spanking 2024. Love you guys. Have a good one. Take care.